The check you've been counting on might not arrive when you expect it next month. If you're one of the 68 million Americans receiving Social Security benefits, January 2025 brings scheduling shifts that could affect your payment timing and your budget. The Social Security Administration has confirmed adjustments to their payment calendar, and missing these details could mean the difference between paying your bills on time or scrambling to make ends up meet. Right now, confusion is spreading across senior communities nationwide. Some folks are hearing their payments will come early, others are worried about delays, and many simply don't know what to believe anymore. But here's what's actually happening. The federal payment schedule always adjusts when regular payment dates fall on weekends or holidays, and January has several of these situations that will shift when your money hits your account. Whether you were born between the 1st and 10th, the 11th and 20th, or the 21st and 31st of any month, your specific payment date determines exactly when you'll see your January deposit. We're breaking down the complete schedule so you can plan accordingly and avoid any financial surprises. Let me walk you through everything that's happening with your Social Security payments in January, and I promise to give you the complete picture without any confusion. You know, over the years, the Social Security Administration has developed a very specific system for distributing benefits, and while it might seem complicated at first, it actually makes a lot of sense once you understand how it works. The key thing to remember is that your payment date isn't random. It's based on your birth date, and this system has been in place for quite some time now to help manage the enormous task of sending out tens of millions of payments every single month. So let's start with the basics of how Social Security typically schedules payments throughout the year. If you're receiving supplemental security income, which is different from regular Social Security retirement or disability benefits, your payments always come on the first of the month. That's been the standard for SSI recipients for many years now. However, if that first day happens to fall on a weekend or a federal holiday, the Social Security Administration moves your payment to the last business day before that date. This is actually done to help you, believe it or not, because they want to make sure you have access to your funds without any unnecessary delays. Now, for everyone else receiving regular Social Security benefits, whether that's retirement, survivor's benefits, or Social Security disability insurance, the payment schedule works differently and depends on when you were born and also when you first started receiving benefits. Here's where it gets interesting, and this is information that a lot of people don't fully understand, even after receiving benefits for years. If you started receiving Social Security benefits before May 1997, you're part of a special group that gets paid on the third day of every month, regardless of your birth date. This is kind of a grandfather clause situation where the Social Security Administration maintained the old payment system for longtime beneficiaries. So if you've been getting your checks or direct deposits on the third of the month for decades now, that's why. You're following the original payment schedule that was in place before the current system was implemented. But just like with SSI payments, if the third falls on a weekend or holiday, your payment gets moved up to the last business day before the third. Now, for everyone else who started receiving benefits in May 1997 or later, your payment date is tied directly to your birth date. And this is where those specific ranges I mentioned earlier come into play. The Social Security Administration divides all birth dates into 3 groups, and each group gets paid on a different Wednesday of the month. If you were born between the 1st and the 10th of any month, your payment arrives on the second Wednesday. If your birth date falls between the 11th and the 20th, you get paid on the third Wednesday, and if you were born between the 21st and the 31st, your payment comes on the fourth Wednesday of the month. This staggered system helps the Social Security Administration manage the workload and ensures that banks and financial institutions aren't overwhelmed with millions of deposits all hitting at the same exact time. So what does all of this mean specifically for January 2025? Well, this is where we need to look carefully at the calendar and understand how holidays and weekends are going to affect the normal schedule. January starts on a Wednesday, which is already interesting because it means the flow of the month is a bit different than some other months. The big holiday we need to account for in January is New Year's Day, which falls on January 1st. Since this is a federal holiday, it impacts the payment schedule right from the start of the month. Additionally, we need to look at how the Wednesdays fall throughout January and whether any of them conflict with other factors that might shift payment dates. For SSI recipients, your January payment actually comes in December. Yes, you heard that right. December. This happens because January 1st is New Year's Day, a federal holiday, and since SSI payments are supposed to arrive on the 1st of the month, the Social Security Administration moves that payment to the last business day of the previous month when the 1st is a holiday. So SSI recipients will see their January payment hit their accounts on December 31st, 2024. This is actually great news if you think about it, because you're getting your money a day early, giving you access to those funds right as the new year begins. You can start January with your payment already in hand, which can be really helpful for planning your expenses and making sure you're covered for the first part of the month. For those of you who receive benefits and started before May 1997, your payment would normally come on January 3rd. However, we need to check what day of the week January 3rd falls on and whether it's a business day. Looking at the 2025 calendar, January 3rd is a Friday, which is a regular business day, so those payments should arrive exactly as scheduled on January 3rd with no adjustments needed. This is one of those months where the old system beneficiaries don't have to worry about any date changes. Your payment will come right when you expect it. Now let's talk about the birth date groups. And this is where most of the questions and confusion tend to arise. For people born between the 1st and 10th of the month who started receiving benefits in May 1997 or later, your regular payment day is the second Wednesday of January. When we look at the January 2025 calendar, the second Wednesday falls on January 8th. This is a regular business day with no conflicts. So if you're in this birth date group, mark January 8th on your calendar. That's when your payment will be deposited into your account. There's no holiday interference, no weekend adjustment, just a straightforward payment on the second Wednesday as the system intends. Moving on to the second birth date group, those of you born between the 11th and 20th of any month will receive your payments on the third Wednesday of January. Looking at our 2025 calendar, the third Wednesday is January 15th. Once again, this is a regular business day in the middle of the month, and there are no holidays or weekends causing any shifts in the schedule. Your payment will arrive on January 15th exactly as the regular schedule dictates. This is actually turning out to be a pretty straightforward month for this group as well, which is nice because sometimes the calendar doesn't cooperate as well and payments need to be adjusted. For the third birth date group, those of you born between the 21st and 31st of the month, your payment day is the fourth Wednesday of January. In 2025, that fourth Wednesday lands on January 22nd. This is also a regular business day without any complications from holidays or weekends. So if you fall into this birth date range, January 22nd is your payment date. You'll notice that this creates a nice spread throughout the month, with payments going out on the 8th, 15th, and 22nd. This spacing is exactly what the Social Security Administration intended when they created this system. It distributes the payments across the month and helps ensure that everything processes smoothly. Now, one thing I want to address, because it comes up in conversations all the time, is the difference between the payment date and when you can actually access your money. The payment date is when the Social Security Administration releases the funds and initiates the transfer. If you have direct deposit set up, and I really hope you do, because it's the safest and fastest way to receive your benefits, the money typically appears in your account on the payment date itself, usually very early in the morning. Most banks process these deposits overnight, so when you wake up on your payment date and check your account, the money should already be there. However, if you're still receiving paper checks in the mail, you need to understand that the payment date is when the check is mailed, not when it arrives at your home. Depending on where you live and how the mail is running, it could take anywhere from a few days to over a week for that check to reach your mailbox, and then additional time for it to clear once you deposit it. This is exactly why the Social Security Administration strongly encourages everyone to switch to direct deposit if they haven't already. Not only does it mean you get your money faster and more reliably, but it's also much safer. Paper checks can get lost in the mail, stolen from mailboxes, or damaged in transit. With direct deposit, the money goes straight into your bank account with no risk of it getting lost along the way. If you haven't set up direct deposit yet and you're still getting paper checks, I'd really encourage you to make that change. You can set it up by contacting Social Security directly, and they'll walk you through the simple process. You just need your bank account information handy, and they can usually get it switched over pretty quickly. Another important point to understand is what happens if your payment doesn't arrive when you expect it. First, don't panic right away. If you have direct deposit and you don't see the payment in your account on the morning of your payment date, give it until the end of the business day. Sometimes there can be minor delays in how quickly banks post deposits, although this is rare with Social Security payments because banks know they're coming and typically process them as a priority. If the end of your payment date comes and the money still isn't there, then it's time to take action. You can check your Social Security account online at the Social Security Administration website to see the status of your payment. If the website shows that the payment was sent, but you haven't received it, you'll need to contact your bank first to see if there's an issue on their end. If your bank says they haven't received anything, then you'll need to contact Social Security directly to investigate what happened. For those still receiving paper checks, the timeline is a bit different. You should generally wait about 3 business days after your payment date before starting to worry if your check hasn't arrived. Mail delivery can vary, and sometimes checks arrive a day or 2 after the payment date, even under normal circumstances. If it's been more than 5 business days after your payment date and you still don't have your check, that's when you should contact Social Security to report the issue. They can put a stop on that check and issue a replacement, though this process can take some time, which is yet another reason why direct deposit is so much better. Let me also address something else that confuses people sometimes, and that's the difference between Social Security retirement or disability benefits and supplemental security income. Some people receive both, and if that's your situation, you need to understand that these are 2 separate payments that come on different days. Your SSI payment follows that first of the month schedule I talked about earlier, which means your January SSI payment comes on December 31st. But if you also receive regular Social Security benefits, that payment will still come on your regular scheduled date based on your birth date. So you could potentially see 2 deposits in late December and early January. Your SSI payment on December 31st, and then your regular Social Security payment on whatever Wednesday in January corresponds to your birth date. These are 2 completely separate systems, even though they're both run by the Social Security Administration, so don't expect them to arrive at the same time. It's also worth talking about cost of living adjustments because January is when those annual increases typically take effect. For 2025, Social Security recipients are seeing a cost of living adjustment that will increase their monthly benefits. This adjustment is calculated based on inflation and the Consumer Price Index, and it's designed to help your benefits keep pace with rising costs. Your January payment will reflect this new higher amount. So when you see your deposit or receive your check, you should notice that it's larger than what you received in December. The exact amount of the increase depends on what your current benefit is, but everyone receiving Social Security will see some increase. This is one of the important protections built into Social Security. Your benefits aren't frozen at whatever amount you first started receiving, but instead they're adjusted each year to account for inflation and changes in the cost of living. One more thing I want to make sure everyone understands is that these payment schedules we're talking about apply every single month, not just January. The same birth date system continues throughout the entire year. So once you know your payment date for January based on your birth date, you can look ahead at the calendar for the rest of 2025 and figure out when your payments will arrive in February, March, and all the way through December. The only thing that might cause changes are federal holidays and weekends. Whenever your regular payment date would fall on a weekend or holiday, it gets moved to the last business day before that date. Most months, this doesn't cause any adjustments, but it's something to be aware of as you plan your finances for the year ahead. Understanding your Social Security payment schedule is really about taking control of your financial planning. When you know exactly when your money is coming, you can budget more effectively, schedule your bill payments appropriately, and avoid any surprises that might leave you short on funds at the wrong time. Write down your payment dates for the next several months. Put them on your calendar. Set reminders on your phone if that helps you remember. The more you stay on top of when your payments are coming, the easier it is to manage everything else in your financial life.